Welcome back to Edu Talks Canada. In this second episode, we're taking a closer look at the educational landscape in Sudbury, Canada. Join us as we delve into the diverse opportunities available for students in this vibrant city. From academic programs to extracurricular activities, we'll explore it all and provide valuable insights into navigating the educational journey in Sudbury. Whether you're a prospective student, current student, or simply curious about educational opportunities in Canada, you won't want to miss this insightful discussion. Tune in and explore the educational landscape of Sudbury with your host, Achuth Kesavan.
Hi, Marlon. Thank you so much for joining us today. I would like our listeners to know that we have Marlon here today. Marlon Hernandez, is that correct?
Yes, correct. That's my name, Achuth.
Yeah, thank you, Marlon, for joining Edu Talks Canada. And it's a very special feeling to have you here because I remember meeting you at Sheridan College in Toronto maybe 2 years ago for a summit. And
Yes.
I think the first experience that we had together was me trying to find you and your colleague because your car was beeping or the battery was on. And I was trying to find whose car is this? And then, of course, I met your colleague and we went together to turn off the car, etc. So that's where I think I first met you. And it was quite a brief meeting, I want to say, because given your position, you're a busy person. And would you like to tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, your current position, what you're doing, etc.?
Okay, first of all, thank you, Achuth, for this opportunity. I think it's nice to know that other colleagues in the industry and the educational sector are thinking about how to share more information about the sector per se. And thank you for that. I think it's a great opportunity. Excellent idea, by the way, for the record. And first of all, my name is Marlon Hernandez. I was born in Honduras, Latin America. And eventually I went to study in the United States. Then I went back to Honduras and I worked in Honduras for about 20 years or so. Then eventually I came to Canada. As a Canadian resident in 2009, I worked in a small college in Toronto for less than a year, and eventually worked with a telephone company in Toronto. And finally, an opportunity came to work in Cambridge College about 10 years ago. Ever since, I've been working with the international education sector, and I think has been a wonderful time for me. I've grown professionally and as a person too. I love what I do, and I think, like helping others to make their dream true is part of what we do. And as a reference, I also worked as a teacher and as a professor in the university back there in Honduras too. So I have that experience too in the educational sector in Honduras too. And I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to share what the little things I know, and I'm just hoping to learn more about this too.
I think you're underselling yourself, Marlon, that the little things that you know a lot, right? Because, you have that North American, Latin American experience, education, and you have currently, I think you're in recruitment at Cambridge
I work in
College.
recruitment. I'm the manager of recruitment for international students for the Americas, Latin America, South America, Caribbean, Europe, and Africa.
Wow, that's a wide region. Could you let our listeners know a little bit about maybe the differences or maybe the challenges that you face when you are recruiting for, I'm painting a very broad brush by saying Latin America. I know even within Latin America, you will find with the multiple countries, cultural differences, languages, etc., and so many needs and requirements individually for individual countries, right? But let's start with a broad brush and say, okay, for Latin America, this is kind of what we have to keep an eye out generally. For Europe, for Africa. So what are the differences, do you think, you see?
Well, thank you for asking that question. I think one of the challenges in Latin America is like the English level is not necessarily there. In Latin America, most of the Latin American countries were conquered by Spain or Portugal. And then basically the language that we speak in Latin America is Spanish or Portuguese. And English level is not over there like a more realistically open for us to come to study in Canada or the United States. It's a little bit different in the Caribbean. In the Caribbean, you have a lot of islands that speak English. So the biggest challenge in Latin America is the English level, because it's not there. Other challenge in Latin America that you don't see in all the regions is that most of the Latinos, they want to study in the United States.
Okay. Now, why is that? Why is United? Is it the
I think
proximity?
It's a cultural thing.
Okay.
For vicinity, yes, but it's a cultural thing. You know what? If in Latin America, we celebrate Christmas the same way the United States people celebrate, not exactly the same way, but very similar. There's a lot of activities in Latin America that you will notice that is very similar. Chances are, Super Bowl was last night. Chances are a couple nights from today, I guess. And chances are many people in Latin America watch the Super Bowl, even though they don't really like football the way they love soccer or the football, the real football. I would
football.
Say, yeah, what we call it football. Yes. But then again, there's many American influence in Latin America. That's by the way, that's one difference between Latin America and in Africa, right? In Africa, you will notice that English is there, even though some of them speak French.
Yes.
And secondly, many African people or students, they see England as the option, right? They see in Great Britain as, okay, I want to study in England, I want to study in the UK, right?
Just a bit of a sidebar about that. I know that UK has also implemented, and now we are heading to our immigration hat. I know they have implemented certain, let's say, roadblocks in terms of new students arriving in Canada. My apologies. New students arriving to UK, and there are certain, there are challenges. Yes, very good. Certain challenges that new students are going to face, because I have a personal example as well. A distant cousin or a relative of mine decided to study in UK, but could not have their spouse come with them. So, do you see any other challenges in UK for African or students from Africa, either English-speaking Africa, let's say, and because of that, they would opt into Canada, even though the last episode I was talking to my colleague Olga, and we had briefly touched upon the new challenges that we are facing as well. And I didn't want to make the first episode about those challenges at all. And again, I don't want to make it only about immigration, but then, we kind of touch upon immigration always, because that at present, that's kind of the biggest hindrance when it comes to recruitment, I guess, right?
But coming back to the question about England, I'm not an expert in England, so I might be completely wrong. Yeah. But something that I can see when I talk to students from Africa is that they mention the Brexit here and there. The moment the Brexit appear in the history, then there's a lot of sentiment anti-immigrant in some countries. Not only in England, no, other countries too. But then the fact that they have this conversation about leaving Europe because of the immigration, because if you notice, Brexit is based on immigration, right?
Yeah.
So some people, they say, no, you know what? I don't want to move to a place where they're not open for me. So they start looking for other options, and the option we have to admit that the most important place or the more attractive place for many people is the United States. Is the number one place where everybody wants to go, either to visit, to study, or to work, or to live, or whatever it is, right? And yet, with the new model that other countries are appearing more appealing to the market, that's why Canada is one of those countries. Australia, in this particular case, England that we're talking about. But then Brexit came in, and then a student from Africa said, "You know what? I don't think so. I would rather go to a place where I feel welcome," and that is the option for them. That's why some of them are coming to Canada now.
Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, the British weather is, you can say it's damp and cloudy, but I think
I've been to England 3 or 4 times, and
but comparatively better than being cold and stuck in knee deep of snow. So I'm sure you have. I'm sure you have your students complaining about, oh, it's so cold and a lot of snow here. So that kind of presents a different type of challenge. But I know a lot of people are excited of seeing snow for the first time. That's the other thing,
of course.
Right?
And now that you mentioned the snow, that's part of we have to own it, right? Canada has a snow, and that's it. But it's funny that the moment students come and they start, okay, this is the first snow, they like it, and then they start disliking the snow.
Of course.
And eventually they get used to it. They get used to it. Then they learn how to handle the snow. And they embrace it. Like, okay, this time we're gonna go skiing, snowboarding, ice fishing, or they'll do things with the snow eventually. And, well, I think it's part of life. People enjoy it. So I'm like anything. Some people don't like it at all. So but in general terms, I think that most of the students they embrace the snow and the cold weather, and eventually they'll learn how to navigate in that.
Yeah. And sorry, I'm just coming back to an earlier point that you mentioned about Latin America and the level of English, right? Now, generally, what I see sitting in Toronto. So again, I want to convey to our listeners that Marlon is with Cambrian College, which is situated in Sudbury. I would say maybe 4 hours northwest.
4 hours driving, yes.
From Toronto. So in Toronto, at least the place where I work, what I see is generally students going, and Latin American students are part of that as well. They go to an English language program in a private school and then come to our college. But is it the same scenario for you? Do you see that transition of Latin American students going to study English language at a private institute coming to you, or I'm sure you also in Cambrian will have English as a second language programs, right?
We have actually we have 3 levels of students. We have students who come to study at Cambrian College English.
Yeah.
Then we have students who come to a private school in either in Toronto or any place on the world, and then eventually they come to us.
Yeah.
And we have students who come from bilingual schools in Latin America, meaning that those are the students who happen to have a little bit more resources, and they study in schools that they learn everything in English since they are kids. So when they come here, the English level is higher. That is something important to mention, by the way.
Yeah, and in my short experience, I don't have the level of experience you have, Marlon. So it's actually a steal to have you as a guest here today, because it's such a treasure trove of experience that you have, and I'm really thankful again for you. You took the initiative and you reached out to me and saying, "Hey, I want to do this," and that's amazing. It's very nice to have that feeling from someone as experienced as you, right? So in your experience, in terms of students looking to study in Canada, I know you wanted to touch a little bit upon the city of Sudbury. And what are the advantages of Sudbury, what is the advantages of Cambrian, and I don't mind the shameless marketing that I'll do for you as well, if you want to call it that. Not the term I use. I know it's a terminology we use, but you are a great colleague and a friend, and I have no hesitation in doing that. So go ahead, tell us a bit about Sudbury, Cambrian, etc.
Okay. Thank you for opening the door for Cambrian College and Sudbury. Pretty much. Sudbury is a city with 167,000 people. Most of the audience all over the world will think, "Oh, that's a small city," which is okay. But then again, if you want to think about a big city, don't worry, because Sudbury is pretty much twice as big as Sao Paulo, Brazil, twice as big as Bogota, Colombia.
Wow.
2.4 times bigger than Mexico City, and 22 times bigger than Tegucigalpa, Honduras. So we're talking about a big city in terms of land. And yet we need people.
Yeah.
So that explains why immigrants in Canada and Ontario, they're open to promote communities, and people come to Sudbury, right?
Yeah.
Sudbury has some options that they're open for students or for professionals, because Sudbury is a city, is a little bit, I would say, more affordable than big cities. And by the way, that is not an invention of Sudbury. That happens everywhere in the world. If you go to England, chances are London is more expensive than other cities in England, right?
Absolutely.
If you go to United States, chances are New York is more expensive than any other small city somewhere else. So same happening here, right? If you go to a city like Sudbury, well, your life is going to be less complicated in terms of money. The quality of their life is going to be a little bit more casual, because it's less stress in terms of driving, commuting is easier. Even car insurance is cheaper. Like,
That's true.
You will see car insurance if you buy a car, and then when you move from Toronto to Sudbury, you see, wow, all this money I've been paying 3 times more in Toronto. Just the car insurance is an option, right?
Don't remind me, Marlon.
But then again, there are other things to do in Sudbury. Like, even though this is a small city, it has all these benefits of I would say, a medium-sized city, when you can have many activities about hockey, basketball games, or you can go and skating and skiing and paintball, and there's so many things to do that you can enjoy the moment in here. The other good thing about commuting, I want to go back to commuting, is that you can be in any place in the city about between 15 to no more than 30 minutes. So if you are late in Sudbury, it's because you want to be late.
You don't have a choice, eh?
No, you have to. But let's say in Toronto, you can say, "Oh, there was a traffic jam or whatever," and people will believe you, right? Because it is like that, right? So it's kind of the commuting in the big cities, like not only Toronto, Houston, Texas, New York, Miami, Vancouver, Washington DC. Big cities are complicated per se, just because there are so many people around there. Well, another thing about Sudbury that maybe you don't know is that Sudbury is the third largest Francophone community outside of Quebec.
Okay, that's interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah, 1 out of 4 people speak French in the city.
So that allows you to open up to the French-speaking markets.
Yes, that's another option for them. And the thing is that even though anybody can say, well, French is spoken all over Canada. Yes, it is spoken all over Canada, but not in the same intensity.
Yeah.
So in Sudbury is very clear. And in fact, today I was walking in Cambrian College, and I heard a couple of students from Cambrian College speaking in French. like picture 2 people speaking in French in front of you, and you think, well, maybe I'm in Paris, maybe in Quebec. No, you're in Sudbury. And you see it every day. Yeah. And you can see that multiculturalism, and then the language is there, right? We have other important things like healthcare. The hospital is a beautiful hospital in here.
Yes.
Northern Hospital is nice. Is big. It's bigger than some other hospitals in Toronto. No, maybe it's not bigger than big hospital in Toronto, but still is attractive. But perhaps the most important thing about Sudbury is that we are the capital of the mining of the world in terms of nickel.
True. Yes.
So we have.
I have been to that museum, the nickel museum.
Oh yeah, have you? Oh, nice. Oh, this is a very nice experience, right?
Yes, it is.
This city is so around mining that we have more than 300 companies related to mining.
Wow.
We have 9 operating miners companies here. We have 2 miles, and we have 1 nickel refinery, and we have 14,000 employed in mining, supply, and service sectors. We have a lot of people working in mining. And before we get into some mining stuff, it's important to mention that back in the 70s, Sudbury was only dedicated to mining. But now Sudbury, we do have more things. Like we are not only mining.
Yeah.
Yes, we have a lot of mining products or services, but we are a little bit more diversified than before.
Got it.
So what happened back in the 70s, when I talked to the taxi drivers or the senior people in the city, they mentioned, back in the 70s, something happened, and then mining companies started closing operations, and then the city had a big trouble, right? But now the thing's a little bit different. And now that doesn't mean that if mining is stopped in the city, we will not suffer. Of course, we will suffer, but not in the same proportion that we did it in the past. So the city has been growing, and now we offer services. In fact, that's one of the reasons why we have a lot of Latinos working here, because many of our companies, they do business with Cuba, with Chile, Mexico, Colombia, Peru, Brazil, all Latin America, all over the place. So and Africa, obviously, because every place where you have mining industry, they are connected with us in here.
And that will kind of having that language component, the Spanish language component.
In fact, I know people who have been hired, in fact, just because they speak Spanish.
Wow.
We need a person who speaks Spanish because our sector over there is Spanish. So
of course, hopefully they're competent as well.
Of course, no wonder, right? But they need to know Spanish.
Yeah.
It's one of the requirements. So this is something that's important to have, right?
And this is a great segue to kind of tell you about a student that I had visit me on campus today. And she came with her spouse. So she is the student, but she came with her spouse so that he could translate in English. And she's almost close to graduating. She's doing a 2-year program, graduating in April. And I was like, very interesting. And I said, okay, if you are considering after you graduate, you're trying to find jobs and, you want to improve your English language, but you still want to find a job. I suggested the consulate because sometimes consulates have local staff, right? The consulate the country that she's from, that could be a good starting point just so that English is not a major factor. But this is really great to know that in Sudbury, there's a need for Spanish-speaking professionals, right?
And it is an opportunity for them in here, and in some sectors, especially in mining.
And very importantly, you have the rural immigration pilot program there. Right?
Yes, that's part of the other thing that we have in here. But before we go into immigration, I want to mention one more thing about Sudbury.
Yeah,
something that we call significant job.
Yeah.
Yes, you can find a job any place in the world. Achuth, if you and I right now quit what we're doing and we ended up being in Berlin, Germany, tomorrow, we get a job in Berlin. For sure, we get a job in Berlin.
Hopefully, but I don't speak German though.
I don't know.
But yes, I understand what you're saying.
Me, we're going to get a job over there.
Yeah.
But the question is doing what?
Yeah.
So will that job help us as a personally, like feeling good what we're doing, professional will help us, and eventually can we become Germany permanent resident or something?
Yeah.
So if those three questions are okay, then we can be okay in German.
Yeah.
But what
True.
if that's not the case? So living in a big city, that's one of the challenges. Is and please, I'm not trying to demonize living in a big city, because it's beautiful to live in a big city. Like if you, every time I go to Toronto, every time I see Washington D.C. or Miami or New York, well, this is impressive, right?
Yeah.
And yet, living in there, you notice that, okay, this is not that easy. It's a little bit more complicated, and the life is more complicated, and it's not
True.
easy to find a significant job, because many of the jobs that the students find, especially, let's talk about the position of the jobs, the students, they have a hard time to find a job over there because most of the jobs are part-time.
True. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you're competing with thousands of people.
Absolutely.
Which when they think about Canada, they think about these 5 big cities.
Yeah.
It's like us moving to England.
Yeah.
Chances are we're going to think about London.
Yeah. Which is, and that's very disheartening to me, honestly, because there's a lot of students that I see personally, and they're so stuck in GTA. And I'm like, Canada is huge. There is a need for people all across Canada. And I don't know when or how this mindset would change. Maybe over time, maybe you have some ideas about that. Maybe come to Sudbury and Cambrian.
Yeah, and in fact, it has been changing in the recent years. And then I think it's time to introduce the Rural Immigration Pilot Program.
Yeah.
When the Immigration Canada introduced this program was 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
Almost 5 years ago, and it started putting Sudbury in the mind of the audience. Like the more and more students are paying attention to Sudbury, and more students are moving to Sudbury to study, plus their families, and that's a benefit for them, right? The rural program helps companies to get the right professional in that profile, right? Especially in trades and engineering, but also in business and hotel and tourism and things like that. So you will find professionals all over the place in here, and every year is important. Last year, if I'm not mistaken, maybe I'm wrong, but last year in 2023, Arnie ended up bringing 527 or something immigrants plus their families.
Oh, wow.
And for us, it's a lot. Yeah, I know that 427 people for Toronto, that's nothing. But for us, it's a lot. Yeah. So that means that there's more and more candidates are coming. And by the way, remember back in 2021 when the Immigration Canada granted all these TRTPR PRs? Well, guess what? Some of those students who became Canadian residents, workers who became Canadian residents back on those days because of the RTPR, they stay in Sudbury.
Great. That's
so
amazing.
Even though they became Canadian residents, many of them stay in Sudbury because, you know what, this is the place I want to live. Once you come to Sudbury and you stay in the city and you live in the city, you say, you know what, I really want to live here. This is an option for me. And like in any other place, it's not for everybody. But people who come in here and enjoy the moment, embrace the city, they love it, and then they want to stay here.
Maybe that's a good point to explore in terms of diversity. How have you seen the demographic change of Sudbury?
I'm glad you asked that question.
Let's say just in the last 10 years.
No, in fact, I just want to mention the supermarket.
Yeah.
I'm a Latino, right?
Yeah.
So in the first days I went to the supermarket here in Sudbury, it was okay. It wasn't like a wow. I didn't find the food that I eat.
Yeah.
Like I didn't find, I would put it very Latino. I didn't find tortillas. I didn't find nothing, like nothing. Nothing. Pretty much nothing.
What's your favorite comfort food? I just want to quiz you for 1 minute.
Okay, say it again.
What is your favorite comfort food? Latino comfort food?
Oh, yeah, tacos, obviously.
Okay.
Tacos, I would say. Tacos.
And
we eat something in Latin America. In Honduras, we eat something called baleadas. It's made of flour tortillas with beans and cheese and cream. Pretty much that's what we eat.
Okay.
But those kind of things, what hard to find in here. But now if you go to the supermarket, you find everything.
Got it.
You're missing nothing. And now with the Filipinos coming, with the Nigerian people coming, with Vietnamese people coming, with the Korean people, now you find more things. Like 10 years ago, it was not like this.
Yeah.
So it changed. Just in the supermarket, you can see the huge difference with whatever happened in the past.
I'm really glad we kind of went into this path of talking about diversity of food, because I think that's the most common denominator with a lot of students coming into a city where they're considering, if they're thinking, oh, I don't know about Sudbury, it's not a Toronto, right? In Toronto, okay, everything is available, blah, blah, blah.
Of course, that we have to admit that. We have to stay there in that fact, right?
But I think a lot of people, or, let's say a lot of our listeners are outside Canada trying to think about studying in Canada, exploring that option. Maybe this is a small key unlocking in their, or a lock unlocking in their brain. And you've given them the key, saying that, yes, there is diversity of food in places like Sudbury as well, because of the
if
change.
There's diversity of food, meaning that they have a market for that.
Exactly.
The only reason they say more tortillas, more corn, more whatever Latinos eat is because there is a market for that.
Yeah.
Okay, but the point is like there is a market for if there's a market for food, that means there are people coming, that the people eating that market, eating that food. And the other thing is that normally I talk to the counselors of the high schools and elementary schools in here, the school boards, and they are super happy with the amount of Latinos and African and Vietnamese and all the diversity students that we're bringing, because most of our students from Latin America, from Filipino communities and Vietnamese and Korean and Nigerian students and African students, they come with their families. So all these students, they come with the 2 years old, 3 years old, 5 years old, 10 years, 11 years old, whatever, teenagers they bring to the community. And now the high schools and the elementary schools are full with diversity. And they're enjoying that moment that they're flourishing with diversity, and you will see in the schools now.
And now I think it's a great point that you mentioned that, and I'm a little disheartened to say what I'm going to say now, because we've had the announcement from IRCC for the next 2 years. There's a cap, and there's going to be a stoppage or a closure of students who are going to be studying in a college to invite their family members or their spouses coming on an open work permit. I know it's probably going to take us on to a very into a very disappointing mode. What kind of significant impact does this have for Sudbury, for Cambrian, if you'd like to say that? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I can't make an opinion on what
I understand. Yeah,
immigration decided to do. If you ask me personally, I wish we had some time to prepare for this.
Yeah,
but it's not the case. Dubai is not the case. I think that one of the sectors gonna suffer the limitation of bringing family members as international student. Is gonna be like the boarding school, the school boards, because. So they're going to miss those students big time.
Yeah.
The other thing is that eventually there's going to be the growth in Sudbury will stop a little bit. We will have some sort of plateau for a couple of years, and then we're going to keep growing. I have to think that I want to think positively that the government is doing this because it's for the best interest for everybody.
Yeah.
And I want to think that these 2 years will help us to improve things, to keep preparing ourselves for a better system for international students. One thing I can tell you about Sudbury, that let's say housing crisis that is in Canada, not only Canada, by the way, is also in the United States. You can feel it in England too.
Yes.
You can see it everywhere. Is there, is real. So,
Yes.
but in Sudbury, for some reason, the scale or the proportion of the level of housing crisis is lower. I'm not gonna say that it doesn't exist. It's still there, but in less proportion than in big cities. And then I think we were not suffering the same level in big cities are suffering. But I think this moment will help us to be ready for the next step to be more prepared for this. And then I think at the end of the day, let's see what happens. So I think the industry has been in some other challenges in the past with some other like COVID-19. We survived that, and now I think this is just another
challenge, and that's
another challenge.
That's where experience comes in, especially with you. You have seen a lot of highs and lows. I'm assuming over the how many years have you been with Cambrian, for example?
It's going to be 10 years this June.
So 10 years. So in 10 years, I'm sure you've seen a lot of the highs and lows. And at some point, you kind of probably figured that, okay, it's another challenge to be conquered, let's say.
Yeah,
right?
You just need to live with this and embrace it and be ready. And change is going to be constant all the time. So nothing's going to be permanent forever. We just need to be ready for that. But the one thing I can tell you that Sudbury is a better city with international educated professionals. Sudbury is a better city with more diversity. Sudbury is going to be better the more we grow with the diversity.
I don't want our listeners to be disheartened just because of that particular factor. It's still a great place to study. Canada is still a great place to receive your international education. It's a great place to experience life as an international student, make friends, mingle with different cultures, etc. If I may pivot for a minute, again, in terms of Sudbury, and I speak from personal experience. I have a friend of mine who moved to Sudbury to set up his startup, right? And the city of Sudbury was great in helping him set up in funding, office space, etc., etc., etc. Do you see a lot of students considering entrepreneurship after completing your program? I know we have the immigration piece things that just let's keep it aside separately, but in your experience, how many students do you see getting into entrepreneurship after completing
many students? I don't have the data, but I can tell you that I can see that in the students. We have students who open restaurants, students who open cleaning companies, students who open small business. You will see that. You can see it in here. Other students are getting ready once because we have to admit something. The immigration model that we have in Canada doesn't really encourage for us to open a small business.
Exactly.
Whatever the reason is, we don't have it in that way. You have to become Canadian resident, pretty much working for somebody else. Yeah. But once you become Canadian resident, that's the moment it opens for another options, right? Yeah. So I can see that, and I have seen here. I would say many restaurants, Latino restaurants, and Indian restaurants, and Chinese restaurants, Japanese restaurants. You will see it all over the place. Plus, also you can see even grocery stores, like a very dedicated grocery store for, again, Indian community, Latino community, and you see them. So people are opening business related to their heritage and culture, and it's there. So entrepreneurship is part of their life in here. And I think eventually many of their students, they will set up their own businesses and they will help others to get jobs. And is there?
Yeah.
That's a good question, by the way.
Yeah, I know, because it's, again, that's why I said let's keep that immigration component aside, because students who graduate, I think we are missing out, right? And we are missing out on a great number of opportunities. We are missing out on skills, talent, connections that international students bring in and can become a kind of ambassador between countries if they are becoming entrepreneurs, whether it's import, export, whether it's tourism, etc. Any opportunity that Canada can get to kind of expand the market to not just America as our customer, but worldwide, right? So I've always had this thought, but of course I'm not in any position to make powerful decisions like that. But I'm glad to get your insight. I think we wanted to get into a little bit about the Ontario nomination program and how it can be beneficial to students who are in Sudbury.
Thank you, Achuth, for that question. I am glad that you're asking that question, because this year, January 2nd, the Ontario nomination program that is related to international student stream make a change, expanding the eligibility for international students who have completed 1 year graduate certificate from college. In the previous year, before January 2nd, 2024, Immigration Ontario had this offer, but only if the program the student was taking had a requirement of the completion of a degree from university, so as an admission requirement. So if you didn't come from university, you couldn't take it, and then because the requirement must be university level only. But now, any 1 year college program that grants an Ontario college graduate certificate will qualify as a certificate program eligible to Ontario nomination, a international student stream. And that is important for us. By the way, that is important for all the Ontario colleges, not only Cameron College. I have to admit that. However, there is another important factor about the Ontario nomination, is that if you study in a city like Sudbury, and if you work in a city like Sudbury and live in a city like Sudbury, you have way more chances to become Canadian resident than a person who study, work, and live in, let's say, in Toronto. And by the way, notice that Ontario nomination is for students who are in Ontario. So if you study, work, and live in, I don't know, any other province, and you want to apply for Ontario nomination, it doesn't work for you. You have to be in Ontario. So I want to mention that because I just happened to receive a phone call at the beginning of this year. Somebody in another province realized about this, and the first question he asked me, okay, can I do that? But if you work in I would mention the province anyway, in Alberta, because the guy was in Alberta, I was saying, what if I work in Alberta? I grew in Alberta, but I want to apply for Ontario nomination because I promised to move to Ontario. I don't think it works that way.
Yeah.
You have to live in Ontario, to study in Ontario, to work in Ontario, so you can apply in Ontario.
And in fairness, Alberta also has a great nomination program. Yeah.
Yeah, they have their own. But I don't know why he's asking that question. I guess he's heard somebody on social media or something in YouTube, I don't know where. And then the guy, the person came to me and said, I want to know about this. And I said, well, you have to be in Ontario for this program. And by the way, I mentioned that to him. You guys have another program in there while you apply for that. But then the point is, like, some people might be interested in using Ontario nomination international student stream as an option. Most of the employers don't know much about the Ontario nomination.
Yeah.
And whatever you don't know, you don't want to get involved into. Again, like if you know, if you are not aware of something, chances are you don't want to get involved. This is complicated. I don't know anything about this. Do I need a lawyer? whatever. So the employers not necessarily get engaged because, you know what, I don't want to get into this. But then hopefully there are immigration consultants that they know about this and they can guide the candidates. You know what, this is an option for you. This is...
And it's a good... I think I want to ask this question because we do this sometimes for our students where... and again, I shouldn't say it's like a very constant thing we do. We do connect with employers when necessary to clarify some questions on behalf of our students, right? Clarify immigration questions. Do you guys in Cambrian do that to just clarify with employers saying, you know, there is this possibility?
Well, we do mention, remember, I am a RISIA, so I don't get involved in PR processes.
Yeah.
We are allowed only to mention that there is some options. So, and the moment the employer comes to us or the student comes to us, I want to get more details about this. That's the moment we say, well, you have always the option to call Immigration Canada or to hire an immigration consultant because that would be a better option. But the fact that the Ontario immigration is there help us to promote the option as Sudbury is an option, by the way. And then more and more students are paying attention to that because, well, that's an option for you. And please remember one thing, Achuth, is the fact that Ontario immigration costs $1,500.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's quite expensive.
So that if when you apply for a Express Center, you don't have to pay for that. You just apply directly, and then you pay the PR process, right?
Yeah.
But then for Ontario immigration, you have to pay $1,500. So it's some money involved in there, yet it's doable. But then I think it's an option for us as another option that, and you can tell that Immigration Canada and Immigration Ontario are thinking about cities like Sudbury.
Yeah.
So by creating rural northern immigration pilot program, and then by making this Ontario nomination, giving more extra points if you live in study and work and live in cities like Sudbury. But I have to be clear, it's not only Sudbury. Cities like Sudbury, you will get extra points. In fact, in the Ontario nomination, you get, I would say, 0 points. Just to give you an idea, if you are living in I want to give me a second. I want to show this myself. If you let's say, if you live, if you have a job offer in, I would say in Toronto, you get 0 points. If you get in GTA, you get 3 points. But if you have the job offer in, let's say in Sudbury, you get 10 points.
Oh, wow.
Same happening.
Very,
if you study,
very exciting.
If you study in Toronto, you get 0 points.
Yeah.
If you study in GTA, you get 3 points.
Yeah.
But if you study in Sudbury, you get 10 points.
Yeah. So very, very enticing.
Yeah. And then obviously the other things are similar. The salaries and things like that are pretty much similar. But then the fact that you have more points because you study and work and live in cities like Sudbury, then is more attractive for some people to apply. And now with the elimination of the limitation of you have to have a graduate certificate that only has a bachelor degree requirement, with that, it opens the door for all of us.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that is, I think, all those points, and especially a certain demographic, that will be very exciting rather than being in a bigger city like GTA, right?
Yeah. It will be more attractive for many people that say, I have the skills, I can work in this company for 6 months, and then I can make it, and that's it.
Yeah. And that's opening up, like I said, if it's a mature student, that someone who's not in their early 20s, let's say, or who is coming to Sudbury with a family and want to kind of settle down in Sudbury, that's very exciting. Did you want to also go ahead and let our listeners know about the services you're offering or the programs that you're offering at Cambrian?
Yes, I would just want to mention quickly that in Cambrian College, we offer many services. We have international student advising and orientation. We have a department called Learning Center. That means that if, let's say, you have some challenges in math, in science, or biology, whatever, they can give you a tutor for that, and they'll help you to figure out how to. Sometimes some students have some challenges to establish to how to train, how to study, how to perform well in school. So we have the Learning Center for that. We also have the Athletic Center where we have varsity, intramural, sports, and gym. We have a very nice gym, by the way. We have a Pride Center. We have a Women's Resources Center. We have a spiritual center. We have a place like a little church that you can go and pray. We have many social networking activities and things that you can find in the college all over the place. Plus, we have a career center. Yeah. The career center is very important because they help you they make you ready to go to interviews. They have mock interviews for you. They review your resume. They train you to get a job, and it is easier in that way. And we have the largest career fair in Northern Ontario. By the way, we just happened to have it a week ago. It was full. It was packed, and then we have that option. Plus, another important thing that we have in the college, and I guess this is something that is separate Canada from other countries, is like in the college system, we do have a lot of research.
Yes.
If you think about countries like the United States as a reference, most of the research is done by universities.
Exactly. Yeah.
In Canada it's a little bit different. We have a lot of research, and then we have a regional development center. We have just in our college. I think last time we were number 18 in Canada as a college center, which is very good.
Wow!
And most of the time we are top 50, but like a year ago, we were number 18th in terms of research and development.
Wow!
And this research department helped us to have a very good industry network and engagement for the students. Some of those particular projects are paid. Some of those projects that students can do that. Some of them are not, but some of them are paid. We have the Center for Smart Mining. Again, remember, we have a mining city. And we are building our battery electric vehicle lab. That means that as you can imagine, the electric vehicle have some challenges in terms of the battery. We want the battery to last like many hours, right? And to be charged faster. So we're working on that. The government, Ontario, honestly, I don't recall if it was Ontario or the federal government gave us all funding to create a battery electric vehicle lab. So we're going to have that in the near future. And we have a residence in the college.
Yeah, absolutely. And that will, I think that is kind of the key issue in today's, when we did talk about a little bit about the housing crisis and things like that. Residence is there.
We have a residence, and we offer a very good, nice, generous scholarship for the student, or bursary for the students to stay in residence for the first semester. In a way, they pay half price so they can stay in residence. That is very good for us. That's why I can tell you that in terms of housing, we are not facing the same situation that other institutions or other cities are suffering. I'm not telling you that we don't have that challenge. We do have the challenge, but it's not in the same proportion. In fact, I think we are okay. I would say we are okay in that sense. Yeah, and we have many around our college. We have many in walking distance. We have a lot of retails and pharmacies, groceries, fast food, restaurants, entertainment, movies, everything that you need, that you can have enough life to study and live and have fun and educate yourself. That we have it around the city, around the college. So we are okay in that sense.
Amazing. Thank you, Marlon, for your time. I think I took a lot of time from you today. I mean, over the course of the recording, obviously. Okay. I know when people listen to it, they'll think, oh, wow, that was done so fast. But any final parting thoughts for listeners who are interested in studying in Canada overall, from your experience being in multiple countries, working in multiple countries? What's your takeaway for listeners interested in studying in Canada? Whether it's, I know the reason to start this podcast is to give a perspective from different practitioners about international education. And like I said, we are a lot of times, I mean, I know you're in recruitment, but for someone like me, I'll have a blinder saying, okay, it's just, I just talk about immigration. And I don't want it to be just about that, right?
Yeah.
So any parting thoughts on whether it's culture, whether it's, anything? Yeah,
okay.
Sorry.
Thank you, Achuth. I think Canada is... I saw many years ago, I saw this slide that says, Canada is the new American dream. And Canada is there making a wink to anybody who wants to move from their country to another country. Canada is a beautiful place. Their people is super, super nice. And yes, have some challenges like any other country right now. Situations all over the world are not that easy. And yet, I think Canada has a wonderful place to stay and visit and have fun. You can see Niagara Falls, you can see Ottawa, you can see Toronto, you can see Banff. Banff is to my taste, is one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen in my whole life. And you can see Vancouver, you can come to Sudbury and see the Big Nickel, and there's so many things to do that you can have fun in Canada for sure. In terms of food, that as I mentioned before, it's there. Like you're not gonna miss anything. Yes, I have to admit that it's not as affordable as in your own country. You have to start thinking about that, and then there's an option in that sense. At least you have the option to have the same food that you have, and also Canada is still a country that is welcoming you to come to Canada and stay in Canada. To bring your family and this situation that we have right now in terms of students and their family, it's just one little step that we have to take. But I think at the long run, Canada will be the place for you, and I hope you can come and join us here in Canada and bring your family and come to live in Canada with us.
Great. Thank you so much, Marlon, for your time. It's truly an honor to have you here today, and thank you really thank you for your time. I know you're really busy, and I really appreciate you reaching out. And I know listeners don't realize this, but we are recording quite late in the night, and I really cannot thank you enough. Thank you so much, Marlon.
No, thank you. Thank you. A good night or good morning or I don't know, good day, any place you are, wherever you are. And welcome to Canada when you come.
That is it for this episode of Edu Talks Canada. All episodes are produced by Achuth Kesavan and TG Kutamperor. Opening theme song by Rex Banner, Goals. Be sure you subscribe to your favorite podcast platform and leave a review.